But let's head first to Hong Kong, and it's worth saying that it's 1 o'clock in the morning, so we're very grateful to the following people for staying up late to speak with us. But throughout the day, the World Have Your Say team have been trying to approach people who support the government to get them to come on the programme and discuss this with us. But I'm sorry to say that every one of them that we approached, of the dozen or so, said absolutely not. It was either too late or they didn't want to come onto the BBC. But I'm pleased to say that Tom Grundy is joining us. He's a journalist and blogger. Chris Cheng is an activist who works with the media. He's at one of the protests outside the Legislative Council. Adam Shapiro is head of campaigns with the Dublin-based international human rights organisation Frontline Defenders. He's currently on a research mission in Hong Kong. But first of all, let's speak to Cal Wong, who's a freelance journalist. Now, Cal, you were out, you saw these clashes today. For people who aren't familiar with what happened, share what you saw.
Yeah, I was out today during just after lunch hour around 2 p.m. Hong Kong time, and there was a massive presence of the anti-occupiers, as they've been labelled. From my observations, there were three distinct groups, and one of the groups were clearly they clearly looked like they had a criminal element to it, and they were the ones causing trouble. But then there were equally two other sizable groups, and one of them were kind of 60-year-old retirees, equal mix of men and women, and they were actually, they were actually pro-police. So they were there to support the police. The final group was actually working-class Hong Kong people, actually. So they were very clearly Hong Kong people. They had Hong Kong Cantonese accents, which is quite different to Southern Chinese accents. From what I heard in what they were saying, they just wanted the roadblocks cleared. A lot of them actually do support the democracy movement, but it's become an issue of their livelihood now. And that's really what they were there to protest today.
And before I bring in the other guests to speak with us, you talk about those three individual groups. Did you get a sense that they just happened to be there at the same time, or did you get a sense that there was some coordination between those three different groups to turn up at the same time?
I definitely think there was coordination of some sort for them to all turn up at the same time, but I wouldn't say that by any means that they were colluding with each other. In fact, when the police escorted the younger, more violent crowd away, the other two groups were applauding the police, cheering them on, encouraging them to do their job and get rid of the violent element. So yes, there was definitely a coordination because they all turned up at approximately the same time. They all left generally at the same time. And in fact, I spoke to one of the elderly ones and she said, yeah, we got a call out. And of course, when I asked her, who it was, she was very quiet after that. So yeah, definitely coordination.
I want to bring in Chris Cheng now, who's at a protest at the moment. Chris, explain where you are, what you can see, the sort of numbers of people out on the streets at this very early hour of the morning in Hong Kong.
I was just on a fly over the protest site, so I would say there are 1,000 people still sleeping here.
And you look around, tell me what you can see and where you are. Just paint a picture for people listening around the world.
Well, up on the call the protest organisers last week, many people are bringing their own tent, mattress, mat to sleep on the street to make them feel more comfortable, and they're pretty happy about it. There's even a very huge either expanding study area, so that students are still doing their homework right now.
And what's the weather like? We've seen some horrendous weather greeting this umbrella revolution, if you like, the torrential rains. How is it there right now?
It hasn't been raining for days, so mostly it's a little bit chilly because of autumn here now, but it's good. People are still wearing shorts, t-shirts, and people feel comfortable.
And you saw some of the clashes today. I wonder if you could give us a sense of, are there more people out on the streets as a result of those clashes, fewer, or the same sort of number?
I think absolutely more people, and even more diverse people, because when they rebuilt the new barricades after police removed them in the morning, they call in some construction builders from Hong Kong. They support the movement, and so there are experienced builders teaching people how to build bamboo barricades. This is the only art left in Hong Kong.
Adam, let's bring you in. I know that you have been out with the protesters today. Are you still out now?
Yes, I'm at a flyover looking out upon the street in Admiralty and seeing much the same thing, tents everywhere, people still milling about, the kind of atmosphere of calm and just people talking to each other, sharing stories, sharing experiences, and students studying still into the night.
And what's your assessment of what you saw earlier today? Cal was explaining his thoughts on those clashes earlier today. What did you make of them?
I didn't get to see the clashes when they were occurring. I saw a bit of the aftermath where the police were still kind of standing in front of the protesters. And the protesters then, as was briefly mentioned, but I've seen a lot more of it, have begun constructing more heavy-duty barricades at a number of entry points to the protest area. And while I think there's a lot of calm and a sense of a bit of relief to some extent this evening that so far nothing has happened from the police, there is also an increased sense of wariness and an effort to make sure that the barricades can stand up. Much more sophisticated barricades with bamboo, with wood, with chairs, with all kinds of homemade goods. And definitely it seems that there's teams of people who, when they walk through the crowds with different materials to put up on the barricades, everybody stops and cheers for them, and there's a lot of encouragement and support from the crowd for that.
Let's bring in Tom Grundy. He's a journalist and blogger, and I know you've been reporting on this all day, Tom. Add your thoughts to what we've heard.
Well, as the others have said, the police removed barriers in some key areas this morning, apparently to relieve traffic congestion, and that somewhat has backfired since this evening. We see people using bamboo scaffolding with tape, cling film, carpet, reinforcing these barriers around government headquarters. There's even people in Causeway Bay reinforcing barriers with concrete. This afternoon, as Cal mentioned, men in face masks, presumed by many to be triad, stormed some of the barriers and lashed out at protesters. As I arrived, police were preventing around 500 people from a pro-Beijing group from proceeding past barriers. There were scuffles and arguments for a couple of hours, and some said they were taxi drivers who supported police and were being inconvenienced by the Occupy movement. But as I left the area around Admiralty, people were bedding in, quite literally. Some people have taken beds down there. There's dozens of tents, there's showers, recharge centres and first aid points. And there's also a documentary film showing this evening. So people are very organised and perhaps not going anywhere very soon.
You talk about that inconvenience. I wonder, is there an understanding amongst the protesters of the frustration of ordinary people? Cal was talking about these older residents who don't necessarily disagree with the protest, but just want their city back. They want it back to normal. Is there that understanding amongst the protesters?
It's debated often, and I've seen in Mong Kok people on both sides of the argument take the microphone and discuss that very issue. There's often deliberation and people decide today, particularly at the Mong Kok camp, which is quite different. They say they've got their own thing going on, and quite different to the more student-oriented.
Tom, I hope you forgive me for jumping in. Your Skype line is deteriorating quite significantly, so I'm keen for us to try and redial you and get your thoughts on a much clearer line. Cal, I wonder what your thoughts are on that, on whether there is this understanding amongst the protesters that actually there's lots of people who just want their city back to normal. They want to get to work easily, they want to get to school easily, and these barricades are a problem.
Yeah, I think, the awareness is there amongst the protesters, but they also have their agenda. And one of the people I interviewed today, it was a middle class gentleman, and he understood. He said, students have their way of thinking. We have our way of thinking, and sometimes it's not wise to be so resolute in your desired outcome. So he went on to say, the students aren't thinking about the shop owners who aren't necessarily the big chain jewelry stores. It's a mum and pop stores who are paying tens of thousands of dollars of rent per month, and half a month has gone by and they can't open their stores.
Right.
It's
Right.
It is something that people are aware of, and I think more and more as the protests go on, it's beginning to annoy people. And Hong Kong's, I would say, is unique in that sense, is that it's a very collectively focused society. So even if these people aren't, these mum and pop shopkeepers, that they're aware of it and they are concerned. And then on top of that,
here.
Sure.
And right, as I would say, Hong Kong people are actually very smart. So you say the jewelry shop, they might be affected, but what I see in Mong Kok is after a few days they try to close the shop, but after a few days they reopen the shop. They think, okay, so there's protest here, but it's pretty safe, so let's open and do business. And also for some small shops or some business owner, they become hawkers to sell juices, to sell drinks inside the protest. And minibus driver from last week, they also changed the routes to create new business opportunity. So it's like Hong Kong people are pretty much very smart to change the routines to create new business opportunities.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Hong Kong people are very smart, but it's also a very civilized and a very law-abiding population as well. And could say that you could say that they're supplementing their income, becoming street hawkers. But I mean, it's not their livelihood; it's not their main source of income. And this is the feedback that I'm getting from these people that were at the site today. It's just that, yes, we agree with you. We don't like CY Leung. But what then? What happens after he steps down and China appoints somebody else, and we're not happy with it again? Do we just protest again and put Hong Kong at a standstill? It's just it's just not pragmatic.
Right. I'll say in every night there's a assembly at the Admiralty, the main protest site, and organizers every night they say we felt sorry for small business, we felt sorry for big business, whatsoever. So they're actually aware of the problems they're causing, and there's multiple banners in the protest site saying we're sorry for the inconvenience right now, but it is for the future step in democracy for Hong Kong. So it's like most of the people are actually aware what they're doing, and it's just Hong Kong. They apologize in the protest.
Just to pick up on that point, I would just say that I think that from talking to people today, and seeing the signs around and getting the sense of what people are thinking here, especially among the students at Admiralty, that this is the principle is bigger now, I think, than just simply the next election or the procedure for the next election. It is about the future of this place and the future rights of the citizens of this place. And I think increasingly people are seeing this as a confrontation, not just about one election, but about the future direction of Hong Kong. Yes, and I think, therefore, the stakes are, while there is a sense of awareness of the shopkeepers and all of that,
right.
There is a sense that there's a bigger issue at stake, the future of this territory, the future of this youth movement that has shown itself to be quite responsible and quite organized and quite capable, yet they don't want to, jeopardize their future because what they've enjoyed so far, I think, is manifest what we see on the streets and how they're organizing themselves in this protest. It's really, I've seen many protests around the world, and this is quite remarkable what we're seeing here.
But where is this movement going? Because it was only yesterday that Chief Executive said the chances of China changing its mind over elections were, quote, almost zero. He said the protests had spun out of control and he didn't rule out force to end them. So where are the protests going? Are they going to achieve anything?
Nobody knows, but there seems to be a consensus building inside the protesters that there's different forces building up inside the government and inside Beijing. So many people think CY Leung instead will step down in a short time.
I think that's. Sorry to interject. I think that, there's a lot of conjecture and there's a lot of hope, and indeed, I would say the majority of the population would love to see CY loans step down. But to go back to your point, there's a lot of apologies for inconveniences, but at the end of the day, it's still an inconvenience. And a common comment that I've been getting recently from just the public, not protesters, but just bystanders, is that this younger generation, they haven't lived. They're students that they can live off their parents, and they're living off their parents now. They don't have to go to work, so they haven't toiled, and they don't know what grinding out a living is like. So there is that there is that the generational difference in views on what the future holds. A lot of these older generation, they're still scratching a living. They just want to make ends meet, and this is still a massive inconvenience for them. Yes, we're talking about future. No one can deny that this is a noble cause, but some of these people can't see 3 months ahead, let alone 10 years or 30 years ahead. So.
Well, Cal, I'm sure this is something we will revisit here on World Have Your Say, but thank you for joining us to Cal, to Tom, to Chris and to Adam from Hong Kong at